Alec Alger, the SideQuest Gamer here, and please excuse the poor lighting of this review. My review budget can't afford stage lights, and if you want to see the review budget for yourself, here it is. Now with that being said, let's get on with the review. Now before I begin my review, I want to talk about nostalgia. Nostalgia is a powerful force, a powerful love for a time period, especially if you lived in the 1980s, which it introduced the Nintendo Entertainment System. It had many good games, it had many terrible games, but nostalgia can increase or decrease our love for these specific games. Now, if you're someone like me, I didn't grow up in the 1980s or the 1990s. I mean, my first console was a Nintendo 64, but I lived in the 2000s, and I'm pretty much immune to all sorts of nostalgia. So, if I play a video game, I review it and take it for what it is and how it exists today, whether it still holds up or not. Now, with that being said, today I'm going to take a look at the NES classic, Adventure Island. And although it didn't age too well, it's still a lot of fun. So, let's take a look at it.
Adventure Island is a classic NES game that was released in 1998 in North America, and oddly, 1992 in Europe. It was developed by Hudson Soft, and it's supposedly an adaptation of the Sega arcade game Wonder Boy.
In other words, it's a clone game.
Yes, it's a clone game of Wonder Boy. They may have made the characters different, but the gameplay is identical and originally began development as a port to Wonder Boy. Later became its own thing, kind of like Yar's Revenge.
Now don't get me wrong, just because it's a clone game doesn't mean that's a bad thing. If it's good enough to be accused of being a clone game, then it must be really good, since clones have to be near identical. I mean, some of the best games ever made from today and the past were clones of other games. I mean, Minecraft was a clone of Infiniminer, Angry Birds was a clone of Crush the Castle, and the beloved Banjo-Kazooie for the Nintendo 64 is a clone of Super Mario 64, also for the same system. And cloning is not just common in video games, it happens in movies too. Like, for example, James Cameron's Avatar is a clone of Dances with Wolves, and Disney's The Lion King is a clone of Hamlet. Now, all the clones I just mentioned are not bad. In fact, they're really good. Some say they're even better than their source material. In order to be a clone game, you have to be exactly like the source material with a few improvements to it. Being a clone is not a bad thing, as long as it's not a blatant ripoff like the Great Garcia sisters for the Commodore 64. 10 points if you know what that is.
So, anyways, the game itself is a level-based side-scrolling platformer, kind of like Super Mario Bros. There's even a boss you fight repeatedly throughout the game at every fourth level, like Bowser. The levels are time-based, meaning you have to beat the level quickly, or you die. Collect fruit to extend your time, and break open eggs to get power-ups like infinite throwable axes and a skateboard. If you get hit by an enemy, you lose that power-up, so beware. The story involves an adventurer known as Master Higgins, who ventures out to an island to rescue a princess who was kidnapped by the evil witch doctor.
Yes, that's the story of the game. But hey, back in the 80s, if a video game had a story, it likely had a damsel in distress. I mean, Super Mario Bros., Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda, and the list goes on. But hey, that was practically a commandment for video games back in the 1980s. Either that or save the world. And I really can't blame feminist gamers for going after these franchises. I mean, it's been better over the years and all. But hey, at least back in the 1980s we saw Metroid. And that had a female protagonist, probably saving the galaxy.
So in the game, there are a total of 32 levels, and they're very challenging. but that was the merciless 1980s for you. Like I said, every 4th level you fight a boss who gets progressively harder every encounter, and I'm pretty sure you can guess the ending of the game already. Now the game's graphics are pretty dated, unfortunately, but they were good for its time, and it's still pretty nice to look at, but there were other games in that year that had better graphics like Zelda 2 and Mega Man 2. Metroid came out in 1986 and it had way better graphics than Adventure Island, so while it's a little below my expectations, the graphics are decent. Now, the controls of the game is what really ages it. Master Higgins can run left and right with the directional buttons, and can jump with the A button and hold B button to run. But they're very slippery, and the depth perception with enemies coming towards you and response time isn't exactly ideal. But if there's one aspect that the game really shines on, it's the music. It's the kind of music that can get stuck into your head all day, and while not up there with Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Kirby's Adventure, or Mega Man, it's definitely up there with the likes of Bubble Bobble and Kid Icarus. Give it a listen. To talk about, but the older the game is, the less I have to talk about it, because it was more simplistic back then. But I pretty much covered all aspects of the game, and since this is a no spoiler review, it can't be any longer than this. So overall, I would give Adventure Island a 73 out of 100. While it's not the best NES game nor the best platformer, it's pretty fun and worth at least one weekend. I can't recommend this game to everyone, including gamers, honestly, but if you're a retro gamer and or collector, give this game a try. But casual gamers won't really get anything out of this game, I'm sorry to say.
Now, if you want to skip to its superior sequels, go right ahead. Nothing changes in the sequels, and I mean, a damsel always gets kidnapped, but by different enemies, so there's really no overarching continuity to it. And I seriously recommend trying those out first if you want to get the true Adventure Island feel. So please don't feel obligated to play the first one if you don't want to. But we're not stopping there. Next week, I'm going to review Adventure Island 2 for the NES, and you'll really see the evolution of the franchise from there. Thank you for watching my rather short review, and remember to stay awesome!